On the 4th of January, most of us woke up to the breaking news that the US military, under the orders of President Trump, had invaded the nation of Venezuela and captured the sitting president Nicolas Maduro. Now, I understand that the media have been spewing the same lines about morality, ethics, and international law on this event, so I'm here to give you some much-needed clarity on why this action was taken. And just so I'm clear, I will not be repeating any media rhetoric on this because, unlike most of you, I understand that empty barrels make the most noise. And before we start, I want you to understand one thing. Your brand of politics, whether socialism or capitalism, does not matter to this event, because to those in power, these concepts are meaningless. America's actions stems from imperialism and self-interest, and they have had the justification for this since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The world as you know it pre-COVID has changed, and these kinds of actions will continue to happen routinely. And the only thing left on display is the ravenous nature of power. So let's begin.
Okay.
Now, I understand that to attack a sovereign nation and the subsequent arrest of its president may be shocking to you, but this is not even the first time it's happened. In 1989, America invaded Panama and arrested Manuel Noriega, who was then the de facto military leader of that nation. There was also the 1961 attempt on Fidel Castro's regime, which has come to be known as the Bay of Pigs. In Noriega's case, the same charges of drug trafficking was used to bring him to the USA to stand trial. This was also the playbook during the 20-year occupation of the Middle East with the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. The main resources that the US Army wanted there was oil and opium. And while the oil was beneficial to the US economy, the fallout was the opioid epidemic. So as with back then, the arrest of Nicolas Maduro is simply about oil. America needs the oil in Venezuela to continue the hegemonic dominance of the petrodollar system. And by controlling Venezuela, which has arguably the largest oil reserves in the world, then China's dream of world dominance remains just an opioid-induced dream. Now you, my doubtful listener, might think that I'm overreaching because all the propaganda that has been fed to you has convinced you that we're moving towards a greener future with new technology and electric cars. You think that farmland being converted to solar panel farms and more windmills will be the future that you want and greatly desire. But I have to tell you, that's only a beautiful delusion. This is simply because the one energy option that we know the most about, rely on the most, and have proven to be ever versatile and cheaper is crude oil. For you see, most of the world's infrastructure still relies on this dinosaur juice in order to give you the modern conveniences that you love so much, like the jet fuel for your holiday travels, plastic bowls for your kale salad, and the electricity that you charge your fancy cars and appliances with. Because without these, your life will not be as you have it. And when a resource is that valuable and necessary, you best believe that the nations with military power will simply be willing to lie, cheat, and steal to have more of it. Because the simple fact is, the more of such a resource that you have, the greater the leverage and the national interest protections that you can buy. Ask yourself why Russia wants the Donbass region of Ukraine so much, because I am certain it's not the Russian citizens that live over there, but it has everything to do with the fertile farmland, the oil, and the over 1 trillion cubic meters of natural gas in that area. The simple truth is that when it comes to the calculus of geopolitics, there is no such thing as the common good.
Greed is good.
From what I have read and seen, the reaction to Maduro's arrest have not escaped our binary notions of left and right politics either. But then again, we all prefer our own echo chambers of partisan politics. And as sad as that is, the majority of people can never understand or see beyond their own limited framework. To socialists that were fond of Hugo Chavez and his socialist reforms, America's actions are comparable to the end of days in the book of Revelations, and in their eyes, Trump is definitely the Antichrist. But since I'm here to teach you, then let me gently remind you that it was Chavez's reforms that left his people starving and broke when he kicked the bucket and Maduro took over. Furthermore, it is also a benefit of the Chavez reforms that led to the brain drain of the technically qualified people who could have kept Venezuela utilizing their oil resources to improve the lives of the citizens that were left suffering under Maduro. And seriously, if you are now having good feelings for the frankly autocratic, human rights abusing, and attempts to arrest political opponents while blatantly stealing elections Maduro, then you need to sit down and reassess your political beliefs. Maduro is a criminal at best. And to those that believe in capitalism and think that America taking over the natural resources of another country is a good thing because the drugs will stop and you will finally get cheaper gas prices, well, let me remind you that the biggest drug producers are listed on the stock markets, produce the opioids that end up addicting most people who use them, which then leads them to find the cheaper alternatives that the cartels produce. In everything that happens, there's a causality of action and reaction. Nothing happens in the void. And let me also remind you that the USA has been a dominant exporter of energy for some time now, yet your energy cost still keeps rising. A corporation don't care about your politics when the only question under consideration when it comes to them is how much can we charge to make more money than God. Control over a natural resource is the most valuable product any corporation can have. And trust me when I tell you that your well-being is the furthest consideration when it comes to making pricing decisions. Calm your trousers down, one, for it's all about perspective. And this is definitely not the place to blow your load.
What now?
Now I understand that the actions of America is textbook imperialism and straight out of the empire playbook, but I also understand that the world is not binary and even evil deeds may sometimes have good outcomes. The citizens of Venezuela did celebrate the arrest of Maduro after all for a reason. We in the West, even on our broke days, can still afford to eat, but this is not so for the majority of Venezuelans facing hyperinflation and joblessness due to decades of government mismanagement. And yes, it's okay to criticize America for yet again choosing the steal the resources approach, but I'm also sure that community development, jobs, and a stable living wage might be the result of American corporations taking over production in the oil fields. So as an observer like the majority of you, all we can do is wait and see because frankly, only time will tell if there are any positive developments to this. But I'm also aware that this action sets a dangerous precedent, and more nations will be doing this so long as they have the tools of violence to exert some force. Personally, my eye is on Taiwan under China, and Greenland is looking like a chunky slice of meat to America too. And yes, America will take Greenland regardless of the noises that are being made. This is simply because the sheer amount of resources there is not something that the world's strongest nuclear power can ever give up. I dare say that it will be beneficial to lose allies over such a choice, but I digress. So in summary, I guess you can say that this is the new world order, and everything will be up for grabs when it comes to the empires of America, China, and Russia. I dare say that every neighboring country to these nations will be on high alert going forward, but that's just me making an informed guess based on my cynical understanding on the nature of power. But that's a topic for my next video, which I hope will give you a broader understanding on the general trends that we are heading on. And trust me when I tell you that it's going to be a bumpy ride this year. Till next time friends, and Happy New Year.